Hello, welcome to the next presentation for digital security. Today's subject is trust no one. And in the digital world, your best friend can be your worst enemy. So let me just set up my little slidey decky thingy. Okay. And present to everybody. All right, as I said, trust no one. Put the slides into there. Okay, introduction. Today we're going to talk about introduction to cybercrime and how it's converted from normal crime into digital crime. We're going to talk about who they are and why are they doing what they do, who the bad guys are and what are they after, how do they get in, and why trust is so important to your protection. And then we'll wrap it all up in a conclusion at the end of that. So my name is Roger Smith. I am an author, a speaker, a lecturer at ADFA in Canberra. I'm a trainer, I blog a lot, and my main focus in life is about digital crime and digital security. And because I'm such a nice guy, I'm going to quite happily give away my first book that I wrote. It's a PDF version of my book. It's not actually an ebook, but if you go there, you can download it, use the QR code, just follow the link, whatever you want to do. So, introduction to cybercrime. In the old days, we used to be in a situation where it was you had something I wanted, I took it off you. And in that experience, we then went to more of a controlled type of crime. And we had a small group of people stealing from a larger group of people. In the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, we had the introduction of banks and stagecoaches and railways. And then we had Billy the Kid who stole from banks. We had Ned Kelly, who was a bushranger, and we had Ronald Biggs, who was probably one of the biggest robbers ever seen in the real world. But crime progressed, and we started seeing criminals using technology as it became available. In the 1980s, with the introduction of pages, where only doctors and lawyers and all those important people had them, well, also drug lords had them. And also drug lords were so sick of law enforcement getting involved and cramping their style, they actually started to do things about it. One of the noticeable things that a Mexican drug lord did was he created his own mobile phone network. And this is in the 1995, 96 area. And that mobile phone system had towers, had phones, he had access to all 31 states in Mexico. So you can see where the communications and where the instigation of technology into crime has come from. In today's world, we have drug lords who are now hacking border drones and making sure that they are being disabled, unabled, hacked, whatever. Who remembers 2008, November? The Mumbai terrorist attack. In the Mumbai terrorist attack, after the 4 days of mayhem that happened, they found that the four groups of two terrorists had all the normal paraphernalia of the terrorist, guns and bombs and everything else. What they found out after the fact was they were also linked by mobile phone. They had sat-nav and GPS, and they were issued with night vision goggles. But the most noticeable thing about the terrorist attack in Mumbai was the fact that they had an operations center in Pakistan. And that Pakistani operations center was telling them where to go, who to kill, what was doing, what the law enforcement people in the army were doing. So what that operations center did was turn those 8 people into 80 people, because they could bypass security, they could get into where they wanted to go. Again, in 2008, we had the FBI virus, which used to appear on people's PCs, and it was a piece of malware that came up and mimicked an antivirus program. And it said you had so many infections, and if you pay this amount of money to this credit, put your credit card details into here, then we will make it go away and make it all better. What people didn't realise is the actual back end of this was run by a proper legal entity. And that business had 110 people. They paid tax on 500 million euros. But when law enforcement and the FBI shut them down, only 5 people in that whole industry or whole business actually were criminals of their own respect. And they had R&D section, they had accounting section, they even had a support desk for what happens if you rang up and couldn't put your credit card details in. They were quite happy to take them. 2008 also, 2008 was really the watershed moment for when we had crime migrate from the real world into the digital world. And Android and Google brought out the new mobile phones and the smartphones, and we had apps appearing in the mobile stores. Mainly happened with Android, but some of the banking apps that appeared in the Android store were literally not banking apps, they were just pure malware. And this became a big problem that Android and Google had to sort out. In 2010, we had an issue with a company in Sydney called Diverse IT. In the space of 10 days, they went from $10 million in credit to $2 million in the red. And it was all due to being hacked. So it's a big, big thing, and it can really damage not only your business, but your reputation and everything else that goes with it. In 2011, the hackers targeted RSA, and they targeted RSA in a way that hadn't been seen before. And this is where spear phishing came into the equation, and we'll talk about spear phishing later on. But with RSA, a number of people received an email that was very, very tempting because it was directed at them and what they were interested in. The Target hack of 2013 was the biggest hack we'd ever seen that had so many things that people didn't realise could happen. And out of the hack, 1 in 3 Americans with a credit card, so over 80 million people, had their credit card details stolen. And it was a huge impact on how we look at digital security and how we protect ourselves. The trouble is, we still have a problem with people understanding that the digital world is not unicorns and fairies. It really is a dangerous place, and you need to do something about it to protect yourself. But more recently, we've had the second attack on Sony Pictures in 2014. They stole 1 terabyte of information and they put it into the dark web, which again we'll talk about later on. That included unreleased movies, scripts, conversations over an email about actors, agents, the whole bit. In 2015, we had the Hacking Team hack. And Hacking Team was supposedly a white hat hacker, but they had 400 gig of information, including source code of how they use their exploits, their email, their sales and accounts were literally dumped onto the internet. And in that time, it really did impact what they were doing. And we had a lot of big organizations scrambling to recover from it. And then we had Ashley Madison. Now, I can never understand why you need a website so you can cheat on your wife or your partner, but Ashley Madison is full of those people. The trouble is, again, 200 gig of data, names, addresses, date of birth, credit cards. One of the noticeable things about Ashley Madison is if I'm going to put my marriage on a level where I could lose everything, I would not use a password of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is what 200,000 people of that database did. So as you can see, we have no respect for the digital world itself, to a level where happened this month, well, it happened last month actually. Pirates hacked into a shipping firm and they stole information about where their boats were going. They then on-sold that information to the Somali pirates, who quite happily then boarded those boats. So as you can see, we've now got a transition from normal crime to digital crime to amalgamation of real crime and digital crime. And this is literally the way it's all going at the moment. So what do all these attacks have in common? What did all of the attacks that we've noticed have in common? Well, there's no strategy to enforce complex passwords. And complex passwords mean anything on the keyboard is fair game. It can't be a dictionary word, but it needs to be complex, it needs to be unique, and it needs to be more than 10 characters. There was no default passwords, or the default passwords on systems weren't changed. So I can do a search on the internet for default password for X, and the default password will come up, and the hackers actually load that into their tools. Default password for this router is admin. Okay, next question. Patching was not done. In a number of cases, patches were not applied to systems that from 6 to 12 months had been patched, but they hadn't been applied to their systems. And again, patching is one of the only things that we use to protect ourselves when it comes to the digital world, because it is a way of making sure that the system that we've got in place is as secure as possible. The other things that they noticed was we were all focused on the north-south interface. So getting in and getting out of our network was really, really important. And we had lots of high-end technology to protect us, to stop things coming in and getting out. But once that system had been breached, and digital criminals are very good at going around those sort of technologies, they found that there was nothing protecting east to west. So nothing, once they were inside the network, they could do whatever they liked, because there was no checks and balances to stop someone transferring information from one PC to another, from one smart device to another, from one server to another. The other things they found was there were too many administrators. Administration of a system is really, really important, but you need to have godlike access to be able to do it. So the problem is, if you give too many people that access, then too many people can make changes to what's going on. And by having too many people who have admin access, it means there's a bigger target of being able to compromise those systems. And one of the biggest no-nos we're finding out nowadays is administrators with email accounts. Now, email is one of the hackers' best attack tools. So if you remove administrator email addresses, then you never have that problem of why people would be targeting you. But one of the biggest things they found is nobody had actually tested their defenses. Nobody had done a penetration test on any of those networks. To a level, yeah, they might have said, okay, we'll have someone else look at the system internally, but you need to have the mindset of a criminal to have a check and make sure that you're not going to get hacked by a criminal. But in today's world, we've got other problems. In the last 24 months, we've seen the introduction of the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things literally is a system where I have a device, it has an access, an address that gives it access to the internet. And that Internet of Things is connecting the world. It literally is. We've got sensors, we've got mobile phones, we've got devices for tracking our health. All of those things are part of the Internet of Things. But it has only become possible because we had to transition from Internet IP version 4, which had 32-bit numbers, so 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 to the 32nd time, which gives us 4.3 billion addresses, we ran out of addresses in April of 2014. So we had to transition to a system called IP version 6, which is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 to the 128 times, which gives us this friggin' number. It is huge, but they reckon we'll run out of numbers very, very quickly because everything is getting an IP address. And by everything getting an IP address, it opens up the world to the digital criminal so that a refrigerator can send out 16,000 spam email, or your TV can take photographs of you or record what you're saying in your lounge room. Or in the case of a defense contractor in Texas who had their air conditioning system turned into a listening device in their boardroom. So, as I said, you can see that we've now got other problems. But the internet and the digital world really is the tip of the iceberg. What we see is 10%. And this surface web is where Google and Bing and our websites and all our security and all those components hang out. But that 10% doesn't cover things like the deep web, legal documents, financial records, government resources, which are in the digital world, but not quite in the digital world. And both of these areas contain about 90% of the information that's in the digital world. The last 10% is in the dark web. And the dark web you can't get to from the surface web without specific types of software. Because when you go into the dark web, no matter who you are or what you're doing there, you may be trying to find information, you may be buying stuff. In the dark web, you are always going to be a target. And all the people who work down there know this as well. So who are they? Who are these people who want to attack us in the digital world? Well, there's 3 levels. There's the script kiddies. And the script kiddies are the bored teenagers. They are the 20-somethings who really haven't got a life and thought, well, I'll just steal something from people. And then what they do is they do use systems that have been incorporated or purchased or created by the true hackers to do just that. But what the script kiddies don't understand is if I download an attack weapon from X in the Ukraine, then X in the Ukraine is actually going to track what you're doing with their product. And they do not realise this. I can now go off and hack someone else. Sure you can, not a problem. Then we've got the hacktivists. And in the cases of things like Coca-Cola and Cotties, where there's too much sugar in their stuff, these are people who will go out of their way to not only attack their systems, but deface their websites and get people interested in what's going on. And then we have the true blue, dangerous hacker. And these are the people who are not bored. These are the people who know exactly what they're doing. And there's a scene in The Core where the government goes to a hacker and says, we need you to hack the internet. And he says, and there's a big argument, why do we need this guy? And he turns around and says, I think in ones and zeros. And that's what hackers do. They think in ones and zeros. And those ones and zeros and that language that they use means that they could literally turn our lives apart. And we do not want that. So we've got to be very careful about what we do. So what are they after? Everybody thinks that the only thing they're after is money and intellectual property. Well, in a number of cases, yes, you're right. They are after money and our access to money and our access to trust funds and our access to anything to do with credit cards and money and all of those things. And they're also after our intellectual property, our trade secrets. But there is actually a demarcation in the digital world about who is after what. In the case of money, it is the Eastern Europeans and the Russians. They are after money, money, money. But in intellectual property, it's the Chinese. And the reason why they're after that sort of that demarcation is because the Chinese can go do so much more with the intellectual property that they steal. And it's very important to them to be able to get the plans for a system, send it out to Joe Bloggs, who was working for 1 cent in the dollar, and quite happily produce all those products. They then sell it, undercut the people who actually have the trade secrets, and you've lost all your R&D. But also they're after your client information. Your client information is also as important, because then they can launch other attacks on other people that you may know. But what people forget is one of the biggest things they're after is your technology. They want your PC. They want access to your smartphone. They want access to your Wi-Fi router or your router. They want access to your databases. They want access to your cloud technology. And the reason why they want access to it is because everybody is a target. But the more technology they can compromise makes a bigger attack surface going forward for them. But the true value of a hacked PC or a hacked Mac or a game console or a smart device or a server is quite phenomenal. They can, if they compromise any of those devices, then they have access to account credentials, your eBay, your PayPal, run fake auctions. They can go into online gaming and set up accounts or profiles in there. They can access your website because they now have your FTP credentials and upload viruses and malware to that. They can steal your financial credentials, your bank account details, your credit card details. If you're a high flyer and you have wire transfer information, then they can use that as well. And they will use it to not only steal from you, but transfer money from other places as well. But they can really mangle your reputation. Your reputation in the digital world is absolutely critical to you doing business. So if you have someone posting on Facebook that is upsetting your clients, then you've got a problem. But once they've compromised your device, they can use all of the apps on it. So they can use it for email attacks. They can harvest all your email addresses because those email addresses are gold to them. They have access to corporate email, which is even better. And they can, if they know someone is going on a holiday, they can then do the old stranded abroad scams. Please, I'm stuck in a Madrid hotel and I need some money. Please wire $2,000 to this location. Thank you. But then they can also hold our systems and our data to ransom. We have, as I said, FBI virus, we have fake AV. We have ransomware, which is rampant at the moment. We can hijack our webcams and take compromising pictures of people. And then if everything else fails, they will use the technology to turn us into spam zombies or botnets or a DDoS attack zombie or a quick click fraud zombie, because they really don't care, because they have now accessed your machine. So as you can see, just your technology is really, really important. And they can get anything in the dark web from $5 a PC to $250 a PC, depending on who you are, what information is available, what access they can actually do. So how do they get in? And one of the things they really target is our trust. But they infect us with the best delivery system ever invented, and that is email. And our spam email, we get inundated with it. We really do get hammered by spam. 30% of all the traffic on the internet is spam email. A couple of years ago, it was about 70%, but it's come down a lot because of the anti-spam Nazis that are out there, who are now doing a very good job of keeping spam to a minimum, or as minimalistic as possible. But spam has a darker and nastier brother, and it's called phishing. And those phishing attacks are what we get with a ransomware email. So it's an email that looks almost real. Come from the ATO. It's come from Australia Post. It's got a link in it. Abuses the crap out of you, scares you shitless. Click on the link now. Tell me what I've done wrong. And in most cases, it's click on the link. And then we go to the next level, which is spear phishing. And spear phishing takes it to the next level. Remember I was talking about RSA being attacked by a spear phishing attack? Well, they sent an email to a specific group of people with a specific attachment that was guaranteed to be opened. So phishing, they might get 1%. Spear phishing, they'll get somewhere between 10 and 15%. There's also another one, and that's called whaling. And a whaling attack is where your secretary receives an email from the CEO saying, I need you to copy our database into an Excel spreadsheet and send it to me. Question is correct. Where she's sending it to is not. And once again, it's how the digital criminal works. They will use your trust to get what they want. And all of these things are delivering certain components. So Trojans, rats, adware, ransomware, all of these are being delivered by this sort of system. But you can also get infected with websites. And you can get infected with cross-site scripting or having an overlay over the top of a website. And all of this type of thing is what is happening in the digital world all the time. There was a statistic I read a couple of days ago that 30,000 WordPress websites are compromised every day. So if you've got a WordPress website and you haven't done all of the right things, then you've got a problem. But they can infect other things with USBs and DVDs and CDs. There was a scam going around in Las Vegas, scam over in Canberra actually, where they sprinkled USB devices around car parks. People picked them up, took them home, plugged them in, or took them into their offices and plugged them in, and that information then downloaded onto their PCs. But USBs are also notorious for other things. Someone comes in and said, I've got an interview with your HR department, I need to reprint my resume. Can you plug this into your computer and print it for me? No. But there are other things that they do. They've got ways of tricking us into doing things that we really shouldn't do. They also use social engineering, and to a level, they make it so that we trust them to a level where we shouldn't be trusting them. When I meet someone today, for instance, shake hands, I gauge who they are just from their mannerisms, their body language, and then I can then go to the next step, which is talk to them and everything else. In the digital world, we don't have that. We don't get that constant feedback from what people are doing, how people are saying things. We just get feedback from what we see. And how many people here quite happily put a photo on Facebook that is 10, 15, 20, 25 years old? Again, it's our humanness and how we trust each other. So how come trust is so important to your protection? And why trust no one is such a good strategy to have? Because when it comes to trust and understanding what happens, they build the trust that they need for us to do something stupid. They will use references to other people. They will come through Facebook's profile. I'm a friend with X, can I be your friend? So they use the psychology to get to that next step for them. And it's our human nature that we rarely think about what we're doing. When it comes to the digital world, there are a large number of questions that we really need to think about that we haven't thought about how we protect ourselves. And this is why trust no one is so important. Because when it comes to things like building trust, trust no one. Even our conditioning of how we've been using Windows and Apple, because we have to press on something to make it work. And since 3.1 in Windows, Microsoft has been pushing us into double click on everything that you want to open. So when it comes to a link in a spam email, we double click on the link because we've been conditioned into doing that. One of the other things that we have that is purely human is we will be told that you can't go there. And being told that you can't go there usually brings up the heckles and they go, yes, I can go there because I want to go there. And that's really, really important about how you want to do it. And because we ignore the warnings, we can get infected. And that is really, really important about how we do it and what we do. The other thing that we've got to remember is it doesn't matter how many tactics we use to protect ourselves. It doesn't matter how many technologies we put in place. It doesn't matter how much management we roll around it. We can be compromised. Anybody can be compromised. Just like that. And because we can be compromised, people just don't realize how dangerous it is out in that digital world. And trusting no one is one of the tenets of really good security. Because if you didn't expect an email from Joe Bloggs, and he sends you an email and it's got an attachment and it's really worded nicely, and you think to yourself, what the hell is he sending that to me? Trust no one. That person who walks off the street with his USB key, yes, you may have photos. Might be a couple of days before you realise what the hell's going on. But again, trust no one. There was an experiment done by Columbia University in the US. A professor decided that it was in his best interest to work out how social media works and what was involved in it. So what he did is he split the class into two, and he told them that they needed to target a company. Well, one of them totally bitsed out because they were a guy and it was very hard for them to get anywhere. The other one had a persona of a female. Their persona of a female utilised all the worldly charms of the female to get to the next level of a business. That business was a regional air group. So that regional airline started being compromised from the inside through their Facebook page. And the professor called it to a stop when one of the people who were using the female persona asked the CEO to hold up a plane for an hour because they were running late and they were going to get on it. That is what I mean by trust no one. Because they had spent 3 months building up trust. Trust to a level where someone in that group was actually going to do something about it. So in conclusion, we know who they are. They are the bored teenagers. They are the people who think they've been wronged. They are the true blue hacker who is targeting your organisation because you have something that is absolutely critical to them. And that criticality may be money, maybe intellectual property, maybe your client base, maybe what you've been seen to be doing in the digital world. And we know what the bad guys are after because we see it all the time. We see it all the time for Joe Bloggs has got these things have been compromised. Or I don't know where I have to go to get these things. But the bad guys do. And they are very clever at what they do. And how do they get in? Well, they use tactics that we would think are something that we wouldn't even think about. Who else would think that if I put a piece of malware on a USB stick, that if I walked in and say, can you print my resume, that someone would use that as an attack weapon? An email from the ATO saying, you need to call us, press this button, and organise an appointment. Or you have a parcel, and if you don't pick up the parcel within the next 3 days, we're going to start charging you for it. They build up trust. They get to the point where we are going to trust them. So let's have an attitude where we trust no one. Don't trust me. Don't trust your co-workers. Don't trust your family. Trust them outside in the real world, because if they're lying to you, you can see that they're lying to you. But when it comes to what is happening for them, then you need to make sure that you are trusting nobody in the digital world. Now, I have a program. It's called Buy Me Coffee. And it doesn't have to be a Buy Me Coffee, but what it is a 1-hour program where we sit down and go through your digital security. Literally, one-on-one, no interruptions. Let's find out where you're protected, where you're not protected, who's doing what to you, and who could be targeting you. And if you want to get involved with that, it normally costs $490. But if you want to go to that link, fill in the form, and you put $100 off for me into the coupon code, it'll knock $100 off. So if you want to do that, fine. You can buy my book, or if you're lucky enough to have one given to you, which I will do regularly, it is something definitely worth reading. And you can contact us or email us, and we're on social media, so you can follow us. And we are focused on giving people an understanding of how dangerous the digital world is. And we don't go out and sell everything to you. We are just there to say, this is a problem, read this article. This is a problem, do something with this. And we are available on Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, Facebook, and YouTube. We've got a fairly substantial following on all of them now. And we run these sort of webinars, 2 per month. May have a bit of a break for the next couple of weeks because we are having a problem with our internet provider. So hopefully we'll go to the next level. So thank you very much appreciated. Has there been any questions? Any questions you'd like to ask? If you're not, I will close it down right now. Thank you very much. So as I said, thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.